Welcome to episode 6 of Seneca Spotlight. Today's guest is owner Brandon Price of Price Manufacturing. If you like the content you've been seeing on Seneca Spotlight, be sure to like, follow, and share our page so that you can continue to stay up to date on all of the great things and businesses happening in Seneca County. Thanks for joining us today, Brandon.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you on Seneca Spotlight. So
Thanks.
Yet another episode. You're probably our youngest guest, or at least one of them so far. So that kind of goes right into the first part. You're 25 years old?
Yep, 25.
And you are the owner of a manufacturer here in rural Seneca County.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do in your business?
So we originally started out doing custom metal signs, and it was just a hobby project. You know, I started, I think, a year and a half after high school. And I was like, hey, my dad's been in the fabrication industry for almost 30 years. I like working with my hands. I want something that I can do that, you know, when people take a design and they have it in their head and then I make that design come true, it's really fun to, you know, see the look on their faces when they see that final product. And it just kind of morphed from that into building grapple buckets, building excavator buckets, doing outsourced work for other companies. And you know, I would have never ever thought that it was going to blow up as much as what it did. But I mean, here we are 4 years later and it just keeps growing. Just one step at a time. And you know, you go from 1 year to the next and you kind of got an idea of where you're going to progress to. And we've just exceeded that year after year.
That's incredible. So you basically can, I mean, within reason, take anything that's made out of metal and kind of make your own. Yeah. So you're talking excavator buckets. So like, you know, cranes, for example, that we see digging up streets in Tiffin or laying foundations, you're building all of those different buckets.
Yep, and we do get a lot of like custom orders. So every once in a while, we'll get a customer that comes in, they have a couple designs in mind, but it's, hey, I want to Frankenstein this together. Okay. It's, I like the design of this bucket, but I'm not quite sure on this aspect of it. Can we add this in? It's your bucket. We can build it however you want it.
Wow, so that's pretty awesome. So what is your background? How did you go about learning all this? You're not an engineer, right?
No,
okay.
Nope, didn't go to engineering school. Yeah. I went to Sentinel for precision machining, and I got a basic in engineering there. We did 2D software, but we've since stepped into the 3D design world. Grew up as a farm kid out in rural Seneca County, went to Tiffin for my schooling. You know, my dad's been a fabricator for almost 30 years, so I kind of got that when I was younger. You know, it was always, you know, middle of farming season, it's, hey, Dad, can you build this for me? Mm-hmm. Hey, Dad, can you build this for me? He's like, no, you kind of got to, you know, learn how to do this stuff on your own. Saying this to a 5 or a 6-year-old is one thing. So it was always, you know, I can't help you. You're going to have to learn it on your own. And at the time, it was really, you can't, you know, take the time out. But
yeah,
it was a struggle getting to the point where I could do stuff on my own because there is a learning curve. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it really helped with my adaptations in like even my designs now because my dad was not afraid to let me fail. And to me, I think that's a very important step in learning. It's you are going to fail at times. You're not always going to succeed, but the important part is to learn from those failures. Mm-hmm. And there was stuff I was building at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old that it's like, wow, this design doesn't work. Let's try something else. Okay, this design works. And, you know, for being at that age, to me, I thought it was, you know, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I thought it was pretty impressive considering there's companies that have multiple people in the design process that do the same thing. But it was more of an inner dialogue with myself to learn how to do those things.
Mm-hmm. It's just, to me, it's incredible that at 25 years old, you know, you started this essentially right out of high school, but you were already doing it even well before high school on the farm and whatnot. So, you know, it's been a common theme with a lot of people that we've heard on the series so far is not to be afraid of failure.
Yeah.
That every time you have a failure, you can learn something from it. Yes. And the people who are most successful in life learn from all of those failures. The other common theme we've heard a lot, especially in your field, is the relationship with Sentinel.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You went to Sentinel for how many years?
So I went for all 4 years of my high school career, but the first 2 years I was in FFA. Since then, they've changed a program where they have an introductory period. So you can kind of go into some different programs and see, okay, maybe I want to go into welding, but they actually get into that program and it's not quite for them. And sometimes that happens, you get into a career field and it doesn't fit with, they're more hands-on learning, but they're going to a book-related field or vice versa. So it kind of gives them that opportunity to not directly commit to one specific program. They can kind of get a taste of a little bit of each. I had originally wanted to go into the fabrication program, but I decided early on, I'm like, my dad's a fabricator. Why do I want to do something that I already know? I could take the easy road. It'd be easy grades. I know everything already, but machining was an option also. Had no idea on machining. Didn't know how to run a lathe, didn't know how to run a mill, had no idea about, CNC stuff. Growing up on a farm, we didn't really have computerized stuff too much, but that was a big step to getting into the field that I'm in now. It was tough that first year, learning how to do all the individual processes of each machine and taking those processes and putting into a real life experience where it's, okay, if you do this process in a certain order, yeah, you have great timing or great economic sustainability, but if you change that process, you get faster times. You get a better cost effectiveness when you're making products. So that really opened my mind to, I know we were talking very briefly before the podcast started about some different things, like I couldn't imagine in the 40s and 30s making stuff on manual machines.
Oh, incredible. Yeah, how accurate it had to be.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting there turning your hand wheels, trying to match all those readouts on the machine itself, and now it's, in a lot of cases, plug and play.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about. You're right, before the podcast, we talked about, really, we're doing what most men like to do, talk about World War II.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And to talk about the hundreds of thousands of, whether it was battleship turrets or whatever, that were being made and had to be made exactly right so it would fit through the, I know cannon's not the right word, but the piece of machinery that was doing the firing off of a battleship or a destroyer or something, they had to be perfect, because if they were off, the whole thing blows up because it doesn't fire properly. And to see what they've done, but I think that's kind of the American way, is we find ways to be successful, but then we never settle for it being good enough. We're always, as Americans, trying to take things to the next level and saying, how can we make this better, more efficient, last longer, be safer? And that's really what you're able to do with a lot of these custom orders, right? You can take the basic bucket or whatever on a excavator, but make it fit perfectly for what that customer wants, versus just your run-of-the-mill, and I know they're not on a shelf at the store, but your shelf on a store bucket that you would get.
Our biggest competitor right now is like the non-American markets. You see a lot of times where it's, hey, I can go online and I can buy this bucket or attachment for this price. And it's, that's great, but we also carry a warranty. And we've never had a claim. Never had a warranty claim. We take the time, we engineer our buckets, we use proper materials. There's a lot of cases where somebody throws us an internet price and it's, hey, can you beat this? I'm not going to lie to them and tell them yes and give them a subpar product. Every time that piece of equipment goes out the door, it has our name on it. And I want to carry a high quality of standard.
There's a reason why American made usually costs more. And it's because products like what you're saying, you're making it to a certain standard, you're offering a warranty with it. And a lot of folks, unfortunately, just want to find the quickest and cheapest product they can get. And it doesn't always work out well that way. You may get it quicker, you may pay less for it. The problem is you're going to need a new bucket or whatever that you fabricated. You're going to need that so much quicker than if they would have just done it the right way with you right out of the gate.
And in some instances, that is the way to go. If they're only using the bucket for one specific project, they might ask us, hey, can you build this as economically stable as possible? And it's like, yeah, we can, use a lower grade of materials. We're still going to do a good job on it. I mean, I personally inspect everything before it goes out the door, just so that way, the engineering's done correctly, the welds are done correctly, everything's machined to a specific tolerance. As long as those are within that, I'm okay with it. But, if we find subpar welds, I want it fixed.
Well, that's good.
I grew up on a small farm, we didn't have a bunch of money that it's, some of the farmers, they go out and buy a new combine every year. we didn't have that luxury.
So when you're making a purchase, you need to make sure that that purchase is going to last and not fall apart.
Yes, exactly. You know, money, especially in this economy now, it's you want to get the best bang for your buck. And to me, I think it's more important to spend money. And there's a saying on the radio that they have a tattoo store, and good tattoos aren't cheap and cheap tattoos aren't good. And it does follow along with, especially in this field.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really neat. So you make so many custom products. So you're not really a cookie cutter shop,
no.
just printing a bunch of these or that. So what do you
think? And thank goodness we aren't, because I think that'd be a very, very boring job.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a very unique skill set and position that you can, every day is different probably for you. So do you have anything that, or what do you think is the coolest thing or neatest thing that you've done so far?
See, I'm almost, I don't want to say scared, but tempted to not put a label on that, because there's something new every day, something new every week. You know, when we started out, we were doing metal signs. Then we got into grapple buckets and then excavator buckets. We just did an order for 30 wedding venue tables. I would have never, ever thought that I was going to be building wedding venue tables. So from grapple
buckets to wedding venue tables to signs. So essentially, if it's metal, you can probably do it out there.
Yep. And that's what makes it fun. You know, my uncle was a woodworker, and I thought that was okay, but you know, there was instances where, you know, you drill a hole in the wrong spot and it's that piece is junk. I have to start over, and I just never got into the woodworking aspect. I like doing the metalworking. You know, when I went into the machining field, I thought to myself, hey, it's cleaner. I'll get to stay in an air-conditioned shop, work on the machines. That's great. And then what do? I open up a fab shop, just because, you know, it's fun to build stuff. It's fun to take it from that initial design and make it a real-life product. In a lot of instances, we have like customer approvals that will design something, and you know, they see it as a virtual model, but then when they see it in person, we get a lot of customers that come in our shop and they're like, wow, this isn't anything like what I was thinking it was going to be. Like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Like, no, it's a very good thing. You know, it's built heavier. It's designed better than what I was anticipating. Not that they had, you know, no faith, but
and a lot of your hands-on touch and approval. And as you said, that's important to you. Your name is on it, so you want every whatever it may be, you know, bucket, gravel bucket, sign, wedding venue table, you want it to be up to standards, because the last thing you want to hear is, well, there was a wedding and a couple of chairs failed, or a table gave out, or this bucket on this project completely, you know, broke, and now they're behind schedule. And your name's on it. It's important to you. You want to make sure, so people can rest assured of that.
And we do like have initial planning meetings where it's, I'll go through a project with somebody. Okay, what are you going to use this attachment for? Are you using it just as a part-time thing? Is it going to be heavily used? You know, as an example, some of our rippers that we build, some people use those to rip out trees, but then there's other people that use them to rip out concrete. You know, when we do that initial planning stage,
I was just going to ask you what a ripper is, but you're kind of explaining
now. It's a big single tooth that almost looks like a tiger claw. And I mean, they'll remove whole tree stumps in one shot with those.
Okay. So you're building some pretty heavy duty metal. It's not just digging holes. You're literally able to tear out entire stumps and wow.
Stumps, foundations. You know, if somebody's doing demolition on foundations, it's, hey, that's great to know, because we can design this heavier. Because we don't want this to fail on you when you're in the middle of a job. Because especially in Tiffin, there's a lot of smaller businesses.
There are.
And time is money, especially in a smaller community. It's the faster you get those jobs done and efficiently, the more money they're going to make, and the more money that is injected into our economy to support other businesses. And we don't need somebody to come to us and say, hey, your stuff failed in the middle of a project, and that's going to put me behind.
Yep, exactly. So you're talking about your shop. You just did a pretty large project earlier this year, right? So talk a little bit about what you've accomplished just in this last year out there.
So we originally started out with a 30 by 60 shop space, and thanks to my dad, you know, when I first got started, he's like, hey, you have the ability to use this space, use it. And it quickly became apparent that this is not enough space. We need to expand more, because, you know, we're buying more equipment. We originally just started as a fab shop, and we do a lot of work with a couple companies here in Tiffin. You know, if they have excess work, we do the overflow. And you know, they were asking, hey, do you have machining capabilities? I'm like, no, not quite yet. I want to, you know, get into building more. And I finally broke down and said, all right, I'll get a hold of a couple machines. We'll start with that and then go from there. And that just really took off. So, we have both fabrication and machining in the same building. So we can build all sorts of stuff. I mean, when we do the grapple buckets, we do all the machine components in-house. We don't have to send those out. We do painting in-house. So we keep everything in-house so that way it's truly an American-made product. Try to buy, American-grade steel, American-grade components. So that way you're not getting that mix-up of, well, this part's American, but the rest of it's not.
Sure. If you're going to have that label on it.
Yes, exactly. If I'm going to put that label on it, I want it to be 100%. I don't want to skimp just because, it costs less.
Yeah.
I want that.
You're proud of the
quality.
products you're making.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And, we were doing everything using a forklift to move parts around. And I'm very big into the safety factor. I wouldn't put any of my employees in a position where it's unsafe for them to do so. So we ended up investing into a 5-ton overhead crane system, and that was installed into our new section of our shop. We put in a 40x60 addition, and now we can move parts and components from one end of the shop to the other, and you don't have to worry about hooking straps to the forklift and picking something up. Some of these buckets are getting to be pretty excessively large. I mean, the one that I'm working on right now is 6 feet wide and almost 5 feet tall. And that component by itself weighs 3,000 pounds.
Wow. So say that again, the size? 6 feet tall.
6 feet wide and almost 5 feet tall.
Wow.
And
so what will, this bucket obviously goes on a crane, but what kind, I'm trying to picture, because a lot of the cranes I see doing like our street work around here, there's no way that's on this thing. So it's got to be some kind of a...
Yeah, it goes on a 50,000 pound tracked excavator.
Okay.
And the 6 foot bucket in particular is used for ditching operations. And that's for like cleaning out ditches, digging in new ditches. It's mainly for cleanup. You use a smaller bucket with teeth to dig the initial ditch.
Which is probably what all of us are familiar to,
Yeah.
those 3 or 4 teeth on the bucket.
Yep, and there's also a second bucket that we're building for the same customer that has the teeth on it.
Okay.
And we get into like the 20,000 pound to 15,000 pound excavators. That's our main staple. But now we're starting to get into these larger excavator units, and the teeth on the smaller ones are about that big around, about that long.
Wow.
And these big ones, about that big around and that long. And each tooth themselves weighs 50 to 60 pounds.
Yeah, you don't want to drop that on your toe.
No. Steel-toed boots are definitely a necessary item in the shop. Safety glasses, earplugs. Like I said, I want to make the working experience for my employees as safe as I possibly can.
Yep, that's a good thing. So if you close your eyes and envision 10 or 15 years from now, where do you kind of hope to be with your company? I know you want to continue to grow. We talked before we started the podcast about you want to grow, but you want it to be sustainable. You don't want to blow up so quick that all of a sudden you can't hire employees and you're missing orders. But let's say you close your eyes and maybe 10 years out, 20 years out, where do you hope the company is and you are at that point?
So I would say probably in 5 to 10 years, I would like to have another new building, because I ran out of room in my expansion within 2 months of doing the expansion.
Good for you, though.
I would have never ever thought, But
you thought the first one was too big, and now you're...
Well, they always say you can never build a building big enough. It's just you acquire more stuff. I think I could build a building a mile square and, I'll have plenty of room. And then, it'd be 5 years from now and it would be full.
Put you in an Amazon warehouse.
As much as I would love that, I don't think I'd like the heating bill very much. So
Yet.
Yeah. But I would like to build a new building. We've got some designs in the works. We're planning on a 72 by 200 building. So half of that will be our fabrication department, and then the other half will be our machining and office space. So I want to have everything under one roof, so that way, it comes in one door, kind of goes through an assembly line kind of deal, and then comes out the end as a final product.
That's awesome.
But I don't want to get any more than 15 employees total.
Okay.
And the reason I don't want to get any more than 15 employees total, and that's including sales and engineering, people that are on the road, stuff like that, is I'm very technologically based. I'm very much in trying to make my employees' jobs easier.
Okay.
I don't want them to go home at night and, man, I'm physically tired. And I don't get to spend time with my family because I'm physically tired.
Yeah, and you don't want to force overtime on them, knowing that you have X amount of orders and whatnot. So is that 15 employee total just what you're saying within the next 5 or 10 years, this new building, or are you saying forever with your time?
I think forever, but I've also come to find out, I've talked with other business owners and they say that and it becomes, oh, we have 50 employees now. I would have never thought it was going to get this big. I don't think Zach Arnold would have thought that he was ever going to get that big. No, because
he started off, I think, when we were talking about 30,000 square feet, and half of that wasn't even being used. He was leasing it out for storage, and then he's done, I think, 3 additions out there, and they're pushing 75, 100,000 square feet now on his plant. So similar, almost similar story to you. Right out of high school, he went to Sentinel and all this and that. And here they are today with similar but different, I guess.
And Zach was very much an inspiration to me because I actually worked at AMI right out of high school as a machinist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I got to see, the day in, day out of both sides of the business, and, I kind of got into the hobby aspect of it, and I looked at Zach and I go, he started out about the same way what I did. If he can do it, why can't I? And so Zach was very much an inspiration to me.
That's exciting, though. Well, let's make sure we keep your business in Seneca County, though.
Yes,
I know you're not going anywhere, but
nope. At one point I had thought about moving to Kentucky, and I have all my family here in Seneca County, and I'm like, I can't move. We have Webster, National Machinery, AMI. There's a multitude of other businesses that are in Tiffin that their main headquarters are in Tiffin. There's a reason for that. We're close to Toledo. We're close to Columbus. Ohio is that central hub for steel. There's a lot of manufacturers strictly based in Ohio. And for me to move to a different state, I don't think I could ever do it.
This is such a great place, and I try to tell people all the time, because I have a lot of friends who live in bigger cities or other places, and why are you in Tiffin? Why don't you go elsewhere? Why, you could live anywhere and do anything. And at the end of the day, this is home. The people here are great. The work ethic in this area is great. But also, even if you take out all of those things aside, like you said, we're so close to so much of the world's or a country's population that you can, within a day's drive. When I look at flights, you've got, 4 or 5 airports that you can look at and find the best deal on flights or the most direct flight. We're in such a great spot here in Tiffin and Seneca County. I think if those people who are always saying, oh, you ought to move to Columbus or you should go to Washington, D.C. or this and that, I think if they could come to Tiffin and Seneca County and experience it for 6 months living here, I think they would fall in love and would never want to go back to that climate either. We've got such a great place to call home here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you for having your business here.
Absolutely.
But I know we're getting close to time, but I want to ask you, talk a little bit, what is entrepreneurship to you? That's kind of one of the questions we've been asking everyone in the series is, what is entrepreneurship and being a small business owner? What is it like? What does it mean to you? And how would you describe it to others?
That's a tough question. So, like I said, I originally started out as it's a hobby, and it quickly became into a lifestyle. And I love what I do. I love working with my hands. I love building stuff. So to me, entrepreneurship is doing what I love, and I get paid to do it. They always told me in school, find what you love to do and make money at it. And you hear it, but you don't really process that until you find what you love to do and you get paid to do it. And it just changes the game.
That's what I said for years in my time as mayor and in my time here. Like, it's work. You have a lot of stressful days. But when you're doing something you love, it changes the dynamic on everything. And I think that's what we see with you. That's what we see with Zach Arnold. That's what we see with Dustin Ritchie. Some of these folks that we've interviewed recently, you can just tell by talking to you and how easy the answers are flowing out of you that you love what you're doing. It's not, you're not doing this because you think you're going to get rich off it. You're doing it because you love it. And while it is work, you don't feel like the same old, whatever it may be, the 9 to 5, or I'm going in and punching the time clock and making my 1,000 pieces today. And you're doing what you love. It's unique. And I think that's part of the aspect of being an entrepreneur is you are setting your own course at your own speed, your own pace, how you want it, and you will determine above all else where you get in the next 10, 20, 30 years in your business.
And I had enough foresight. I started when I was 19, just dabbling. And I thought to myself, if I can make this into a business that's, self-sustaining, obviously I'm still going to be involved, but whenever I get married and have kids, I'll have that to be set up. It'll be set up and established. I've seen a lot of instances where there's people in their 30s and 40s that are married with children, and it's difficult for them to start. It's not a money problem. It's the time factor. You can always make more money. You can't turn that hand on that clock back and make more time. When that day's over, it's done. Yep.
You're exactly right. And for you to have realized that at 25 years old or even 19, whenever all this began, that's incredible, because as you get older, I'll be 40 next year, I start to realize that really the most valuable thing in our life is time.
Yes.
It's not what your paycheck is. It's not the amount of time that you're spending on vacation or anything. It's literally time. Yes. It is the most valuable thing that we have in our life. It's the only thing you cannot buy more of.
Yes.
And every day, month, year that goes by, you realize how important that time is as people around you age, as grandparents pass away. It is the most important thing that we have. And the younger we realize it, the more successful we're going to be in life. And here's where you are talking to a 25-year-old that already has his own manufacturing plant and continuing to grow. And it's really exciting. Is there anything else that you want to share or talk about today with you, your business?
Not in particular. I mean, my business is pretty much my life. I mean, I enjoy what I do. I'm building new things every day, doing new projects every day. I do have some personal time every once in a great while that I'm like, all right, I'm working on doing a remodel of a house that I'm going to be moving into, and that's turned into quite a project.
Yeah. So you're really a jack of all trades. You do all this metal work, but you're also practically, I don't want to say building a home, because you're not, because the home exists, but you're pretty much gutting the whole thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So what can't you do? I guess that's the question. Do you cook?
Haven't tried that out yet.
Okay, there we go.
From what I've heard, I'm pretty decent, but
okay. Trying to figure out different things. Is there anything you don't succeed in? So
never flown a plane. So
never flown a plane. Well, there you go. Next bucket list. So
I don't know about that. I don't think I have enough time for that.
That probably would take a lot of time.
Yes,
and effort. But who knows? You continue to grow your company. That may save you money. Get your pilot's license, and you just drive to your next sales call or fly to your next sales call across country.
I don't know. I think I'll stick with hiring somebody to do it. I don't trust myself enough to fly the plane. I'm like, I build stuff, and I've seen enough, of different manufacturing points. I'll stick with
you probably have a lot. Yeah, the metals that go together for plane whatnot. So
yes.
I have a cousin that works for Boeing, and some of the stories that she has told me over the years, just about the things that you see and notice being. I really don't like to hear the stories, because then you don't want to fly. So I have very few fears in life, and one of my biggest fears is just heights in general. I don't know why I have a fear of heights, and
I can highly agree with that. I get 8 feet off the ground, and I get a little bow-legged at times.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's a little scary being up there, because you're totally not in control. I think that's what a lot of it is. You're in a high place, and one little slip, and it's game over. So, So you're staying on the ground in your buckets.
Gravity is very much the enemy. I'm
it is.
Not a fan of gravity.
Yep.
Per
It's
se.
not the fall that gets you. It's that sudden stop when the gravity impacts. That it really does. So well, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
I think this has been very enlightening. I've even learned some things. I've known you for a while now through Young Professionals.
Yep.
I know Adam from our office worked with you when you did your expansion earlier this year, but it's still fun sitting down with you and all of our business owners, just hearing these stories, because I think that the Tiffin community and Seneca County in general, I think we can all benefit from it. I know there's so many people, because I talk to them all the time, that are thinking of starting their own business. They have this kind of a talent, or just like with you, maybe they know how to do fabrication, and they need that encouragement that it is okay, that you have to take some risk at times and start a business. And I think hearing these stories from people like you and like Judy Smith at Panyan and others, maybe we can encourage other folks that, jump in with 2 feet. Yeah. It's a great place to do business here in Seneca County. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of the Tiffin community is, and Dave Spridgen said it best, we all work together. Mm-hmm. We all support each other. If you move to Toledo or Columbus, there's a lot of companies that they don't care what business you're in, you're the enemy.
Yep.
And they won't work together with you on those projects.
You're exactly right.
There's 2 or 3 businesses in town that I've worked with since I've started, and I wouldn't be here without their help.
But I think that's exciting. And here we go. We said we were almost done, but I guess another thing to talk about is what you just said. So you're doing some work because of overflow.
Yes.
For companies that legitimately could probably be considered your competitors.
Yes, essentially.
And here you two are working together to help both of you. They can't meet order demands. They're working with you. Instead, if this was other places, we hear all the time that they'll go to another county or even state to get that done because they don't want to give the local competition.
I've even heard of companies subbing them out to other countries.
Yeah, but yeah, here we are in Seneca County. You've got 3 or 4 people doing some very similar work as you, and they're giving you extra work because they can't meet demands, even though you're really could be viewed as a competitor, especially as you continue to grow. And I think, just like you said, that's what makes us so special here is we work together. It's not a competition. And that's what we just love. This place is so good because we collaborate and work together on things.
Yeah,
thank you for being a part of that big wheel of Seneca County that spins around.
Yes, and I think that very much became a dream of mine. You know, like I said, when I first started out, I didn't really have too much of direction, but now it's become a dream of, I want to give back to my community because I wouldn't be here without the community, without the support of people, whether it be in business or personally. You know, you had mentioned earlier, I'm part of the Seneca County Young Professionals, and there was so much stuff in Seneca County that even though I grew up here, I didn't realize was here, and it just broadened my horizons to, you know, different work that can be done. And there's restaurants that I can go to now that I've never been to and never knew that existed. And like you said, I think that's very much a big strong point in our community. It ties together, whether you're a business owner or personal person that doesn't have a company. We're all in this together, and that's what we're going to do to make it through.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a great way to, I think, close this. So,
I think I just come up with that on the fly. So.
You did. We may have to record that and play it at annual meeting next year.
I don't know about that. That might be going a little bit far, but
we'll give you the royalties. Don't worry. We'll give you double of what I'm getting for these videos, which is still zero. But
I'll look for the check.
Yes, there you go. No, thank you for joining us today, Brandon.
Thank you for having
me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.